My grandson forgot his backpack at my house. Inside, I found a photo of my son asleep, dated last Tuesday at 2 a.m., but he died last month. When I asked who took it, my grandson started to cry and whispered, "Grandma, I found this in my mom's car. Do you want to see what else I found there?" Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The afternoon sun filtered through my kitchen curtains, casting gentle shadows across the worn wooden table where I'd shared countless meals with my family over the past 40 years. I was arranging fresh flowers in my mother's old vase when I heard the screen door slam, that familiar sound that always announced my grandson's arrival. "Grandma!" 8-year-old Tommy burst into the kitchen, his sneakers squeaking against the linoleum floor. His face was flushed from running, and his hair stuck up in that way it always did after soccer practice. "Careful, sweetheart," I said, steadying the vase. "You'll wake the dead running like that." The words caught in my throat the moment I said them. It had been exactly 32 days since we buried my son Andrew. 32 days since my world shattered into pieces I was still trying to gather. Tommy didn't seem to notice my hesitation. He was already raiding the cookie jar, that beautiful ceramic piece Andrew had made for me in high school. I watched my grandson's small hands reach inside, and my heart ached with the familiar weight of grief. He had Andrew's hands, Andrew's smile, Andrew's way of tilting his head when he was thinking. "Your mother's picking you up in an hour," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you have a good practice?" "It was okay." He munched on a chocolate chip cookie, crumbs falling onto his grass-stained shirt. "Coach says I need to work on my defense." I poured him a glass of milk, the routine of it comforting. These visits had become my lifeline since Andrew's death. Tommy came twice a week now, more than before. His mother, Jennifer, my daughter-in-law, said it was good for him to spend time here, in his father's childhood home. I suspected it was also convenient for her, giving her free time while I babysat. I didn't mind. Tommy was all I had left of Andrew. "Grandma, I left my backpack here last time," Tommy said suddenly, milk coating his upper lip. "Is it still in the guest room?" "I haven't seen it, honey, but let's go look." We walked down the hallway together, past the family photos that lined the walls. Andrew at Tommy's age. Andrew at his high school graduation. Andrew and Jennifer on their wedding day, both of them so young and full of hope. I'd noticed Jennifer had stopped looking at these photos during her visits. She'd avert her eyes, hurry past them as if they burned. The guest room was exactly as Tommy had left it. Rumpled sheets on the bed where he'd been building a pillow fort. Action figures scattered across the floor, and his blue backpack slumped in the corner like a tired traveler. "Found it!" He darted forward and grabbed it, hugging it to his chest with visible relief. "What's so important in there?" I asked, smiling. "Treasure." His expression changed. Just for a moment. Something flickered across his face that looked almost like fear. But then he grinned, that 8-year-old mask sliding back into place. "Just homework and stuff." I was about to suggest we work on that homework together when the backpack slipped from his grasp. It hit the floor with a thud, and the main compartment, poorly zipped, burst open. Books, pencils, crumpled papers, and something else, a manila folder, spilled across the hardwood. "I've got it!" Tommy dropped to his knees, frantically gathering everything. But I'd already seen it. A photograph, glossy and recent, had slid halfway under the bed. I bent down, my knees protesting the movement, and picked it up before Tommy could reach it. The world tilted. It was Andrew, my son, lying on a couch, eyes closed, head tilted to one side. He was wearing the blue shirt I'd given him for his birthday last year, the one Jennifer said he'd been wearing when he died. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. In the corner of the photograph, clearly visible, was a digital timestamp, Tuesday, 2:47 a.m., and a date, last Tuesday, 11 days ago, 21 days after we buried him. My hands began to shake. The photograph trembled between my fingers like a living thing. I heard Tommy saying something, but his voice seemed to come from very far away, as if I were underwater. "Grandma? Grandma, please don't be upset." I looked at my grandson, really looked at him. His eyes were wide, frightened, and swimming with tears he was desperately trying to hold back. "Tommy." My voice didn't sound like my own. "Where did you get this?" He shook his head. tears spilling over now. Tommy, sweetheart, I need you to tell me. This is important. This is... I stopped, trying to calm myself, trying not to frighten him more than I already had. This is very important. Where did this photograph come from? I wasn't supposed to take it, he whispered. Mom doesn't know I have it. The room suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. Your mother? Jennifer? He nodded miserably. I found it in her car, in the glove compartment. I was looking for my soccer shin guards last week, and it fell out of a folder. There were other pictures too, but I only took this one because I miss Daddy so much. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was saying. A folder of photographs, in Jennifer's car, of Andrew, taken after his death. Unless he wasn't dead, the thought was impossible. Insane. I'd seen his body at the funeral home. I'd touched his cold hand. I'd watched them lower his casket into the ground. But I was holding proof of something in my hands. Proof that existed in this world. Undeniable and terrifying. Grandma, why does Mom have pictures of Daddy if Daddy's gone? Tommy's voice broke on the last word. I don't understand. Sometimes at night, I hear her on the phone, and she's talking to someone, and she says his name. She says Andrew, and then she gets really quiet if she hears me coming. The floor seemed to shift beneath my feet. I sat down on the edge of the bed, still clutching the photograph. 32 days ago, Jennifer had called me at 3 a.m, hysteria sharpening her voice into something I barely recognized. Andrew had collapsed. The paramedics were there. She was following the ambulance to the hospital. By the time I arrived, speeding through red lights I didn't even see, he was gone. Sudden cardiac arrest, they said. His heart had simply stopped. He was only 34 years old. The grief had been crushing, absolute. But Jennifer's grief had seemed different. Not quieter exactly, but controlled. Even at the funeral, while I sobbed openly, she'd remained composed, dry-eyed, comforting others. I'd thought she was in shock. I'd thought she was being strong for Tommy. Now, looking at this photograph, other memories began to surface. Strange things I'd noticed but dismissed. The way Jennifer had insisted on a closed casket, even though Andrew's body showed no trauma. How quickly she'd arranged everything. The funeral, the burial, the estate paperwork. How she'd discouraged me from spending too much time at the funeral home during the viewing hours. There's no point, Margot, she'd said, her hand on my shoulder, her grip just a little too tight. You should remember him as he was. Not like this. I'd listened to her, trusted her. She was his wife, after all. She knew best. Except now I held evidence that suggested I shouldn't have trusted her at all. Tommy, I said carefully, you said there were other pictures in that folder? He nodded, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. Lots. Maybe 10 or 15. They were all of Daddy. Some inside, some outside. In one of them, he was getting into a car I'd never seen before. And your mother doesn't know you saw them? No. I put everything back exactly how it was. I'm good at that. He said it with a strange, sad pride that made my heart hurt. I'm good at being quiet and not letting Mom know things. That sentence opened up a whole new cavern of concern, but I forced myself to focus on the immediate crisis. Tommy, sweetheart, I need you to do something very important for me. Can you do that? He nodded solemnly. I need you to show me what else you found in your mother's car. Everything you remember. Can you tell me? He hesitated, loyalty and confusion warring on his small face. Mom says we're not supposed to talk about Dad anymore. She says it makes us too sad, and we need to move forward. I know she does, honey. But sometimes moving forward means understanding what happened behind us first. And I think I chose my words carefully, aware that I was standing on the edge of something vast and dangerous, something that could change everything. I think your daddy might need our help. Tommy's eyes widened. You think Daddy's alive? I don't know what I think yet. But this photograph? It's very strange. And strange things need to be investigated. Will you help me investigate? For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then, slowly, he reached into his backpack again and pulled out a small spiral notebook, the kind he used for school. He opened it to a page covered in his careful, childish handwriting. I already started, he whispered. I wrote down everything I saw. Every picture, every weird thing Mom's been doing. I didn't know what else to do, so I wrote it all down, like the detective on that TV show Dad used to watch. I took the notebook with trembling hands. The first entry was dated 6 days ago. Found pictures of Dad in Mom's car. He's supposed to be dead, but he looks alive in them. I'm scared. The entries continued, each one more disturbing than the last. Phone calls Jennifer took in her bedroom with the door locked. A man Tommy didn't recognize who'd come to the house late one night. Jennifer burning papers in the backyard fireplace. And at the bottom of the page, underlined 3 times, Mom's been sleeping better since Dad died. She smiles more now. Why? I heard the sound of tires on gravel. Through the guest room window, I saw Jennifer's silver sedan pulling into my driveway. That's Mom, Tommy said, panic flooding his voice. Grandma, please don't tell her. Please. She'll be so angry if she knows I took that picture. I looked at my grandson, at the fear in his eyes, and made a decision that I knew would change everything. I won't tell her, I promised, but I need to keep this photograph and this notebook. Can you trust me with them? He nodded, relief visible on his face. And Tommy, from now on, if you see anything else strange, anything at all, you tell me, okay? This is just between us. Like a secret? Like a secret, I confirmed, even as the word tasted wrong in my mouth. The doorbell rang, sharp and impatient. I slipped the photograph and notebook into my cardigan pocket and helped Tommy stuff everything back into his backpack. We walked to the front door together, my heart pounding so hard I was sure Jennifer would hear it. She stood on my porch, looking polished and perfect as always. Designer jeans, crisp white blouse, not a hair out of place. She smiled when she saw us, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Ready to go, Tommy? She barely glanced at me. Say goodbye to Grandma. Tommy hugged me, and I held him tighter than usual, feeling the small, fragile weight of him against me. Love you, Grandma, he whispered. Love you too, sweetheart. Jennifer was already walking back to her car, her phone pressed to her ear. I watched them drive away, watched until the silver sedan disappeared around the corner. Then I went back inside, locked the door, and pulled out the photograph again. My son's face stared back at me, peaceful and sleeping and alive. Last Tuesday, 2:47 a.m., 21 days after I buried him. I sat at my kitchen table as the afternoon sun faded, and evening shadows crept across the room, and I began to plan. Because if Andrew was alive, if my daughter-in-law had somehow orchestrated this nightmare, then I needed to know why. And I needed to know before whoever was behind this realized I was looking. The game, I understood with cold clarity, had already begun. I just hadn't known I was playing. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph, Andrew's face, peaceful and alive, 21 days after I'd watched them seal his coffin. At 3 a.m, I sat at my kitchen table with Tommy's notebook spread before me and a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands. I'd read through his entries a dozen times, each pass revealing new details that sent ice through my veins. Mom threw away all of Dad's clothes except one shirt. She kept it in a plastic bag in her closet. I saw her smell it once and she was crying. A man came to the house at night. Tall, dark hair. Mom called him Douglas. They talked in the kitchen and I heard Dad's name. When I came downstairs for water, they stopped talking real fast. Mom's phone has a password now. She never had one before Dad died. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. But I also needed to be careful. If Jennifer suspected I knew something, if she realized Tommy had shown me that photograph, I had no idea what she might do. My daughter Karen called at 8:30, her voice bright and intrusive. Mom, I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart, I lied, watching the sunrise paint my kitchen walls gold. You don't sound fine. You sound exhausted. Karen had always been perceptive, perhaps too perceptive. Mom, I'm worried about you. This thing with Andrew, I know it's been hard. Maybe you should come stay with us for a while. Mark and I have plenty of room. The offer was kind, but I heard the subtext. Karen thought I was falling apart, unable to cope with grief. She'd been suggesting I take a break from my house, from my routine, from my independence. She meant well, but her concern felt like quicksand. The more I struggled against it, the deeper I sank. I appreciate that, honey, but I'm managing. Are you, though? Jennifer mentioned you seemed confused when she picked up Tommy yesterday. Said you were acting strange. My blood went cold. Jennifer had already started planting seeds. Of course she had. I wasn't confused, I said carefully. Just tired. Tommy wore me out with his energy. Mom, there's no shame in admitting you need help. You're 68 years old. You've been through a trauma. Maybe it's time to consider… Consider what? I kept my voice level, but anger simmered beneath. Assisted living? A nice facility where people my age go to wait for the end? I didn't say that. But you were thinking it. Karen sighed. Mom, please don't be difficult. I'm just worried. We all are. Even Jennifer said… What did Jennifer say? A pause. Too long. Just that you've been having memory issues. That you asked her the same question 3 times last week. That you couldn't remember what day Andrew's funeral was. Lies. All lies. But brilliant lies. The kind that would make my family doubt me if I started making wild claims about photographs and conspiracies. Karen, I need to go. I have an appointment. An appointment? With who? The doctor, I improvised. Just a checkup. Do you want me to come with you? I can… No. I'm perfectly capable of seeing my doctor alone. Goodbye, sweetheart. I hung up before she could protest further, my hands shaking with fury and fear. Jennifer was already moving against me, already building a narrative that would discredit anything I might discover. If I wasn't careful, my own family would have me declared incompetent before I could expose the truth. I needed allies. I needed information. And I needed to move quickly. Andrew's best friend, Robert Martinez, owned a small private investigation firm in town. He'd been devastated at the funeral, had spoken beautiful words about my son's loyalty and kindness. If anyone would believe me, if anyone would help, it would be Robert. I found his business card in my address book and called the number. Martinez Investigations. His voice was professional, distant. Robert? It's Margot Wright, Andrew's mother. The professional tone melted. Mrs. Wright, how are you holding up? I need to see you. Today, if possible. It's about Andrew. Of course. Anything you need. I have an opening at 11 if that works. I'll be there. His office was above a coffee shop on Main Street, up a narrow staircase that made my knees ache. The space was small, but organized. File cabinets, a desk with 2 computer monitors, framed licenses on the wall. Robert stood when I entered, concern etched across his face. He'd lost weight since the funeral, his shirt hanging loose on his frame. Mrs. Wright, please, sit down. Can I get you water? Coffee? I'm fine, thank you. I settled into the chair across from his desk, my purse clutched in my lap. Robert, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Did you see Andrew's body? At the funeral home? He blinked, clearly surprised by the question. Yes. I was there during the viewing. Why? How close did you get? Pretty close. I said goodbye, touched his hand. His voice cracked. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I pulled the photograph from my purse and placed it on his desk. Robert stared at it for a long moment, his face draining of color. What is this? Look at the timestamp. He picked it up with shaking hands, examining it closely. This can't be real. This has to be doctored. Photoshopped. That's what I thought. But look at his face, Robert. Look at the details. The way his hair falls. The mole on his neck. The scar on his forearm from that motorcycle accident when he was 19. Every detail is perfect. Where did you get this? My grandson found it. In Jennifer's car. Along with others. Robert set the photograph down like it burned him. He stood, paced to the window, stared out at the street below. When he turned back, his eyes were hard. If this is real, if Andrew is somehow alive, then Jennifer orchestrated one of the most elaborate cons I've ever heard of. Do you understand what you're suggesting? I understand perfectly. That's why I need your help. Mrs. Wright, this is… He ran a hand through his hair. This is dangerous territory. If you're wrong, you'll destroy what's left of your family. Karen will think you've lost your mind. Jennifer could sue you for slander. And if you're right, if I'm right, then my son faked his death with his wife's help, and I need to know why." Robert sat back down, his mind clearly working through scenarios. "Okay, let's approach this logically. If Andrew did fake his death, he'd need help. A doctor to falsify the death certificate, someone at the funeral home, Jennifer, obviously, maybe others. There's more." I pulled out Tommy's notebook. "My grandson has been documenting his mother's behavior. Strange phone calls. A man named Douglas visiting late at night. Jennifer burning papers." Robert flipped through the pages, his expression growing darker. "This kid's got good instincts. He's noted times, dates, descriptions. If this were a real case, this would be valuable evidence. It is a real case. You know what I mean." He looked at me carefully. "Mrs. Wright, I need to be straight with you. If I take this on, if I start investigating, things are going to get messy. Jennifer will find out. Your family will find out. There could be legal consequences." "I understand. And my fee, whatever it is, I'll pay it. I have savings. Andrew's father left me well provided for." Robert studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, I'll do it. For Andrew. But we do this my way. No confronting Jennifer. No telling Karen or anyone else. You act normal. Keep your routine. Let me dig. What will you do first?" "I'll start with the death certificate and autopsy report. See if there are any irregularities. Then I'll track down everyone who was involved in the funeral arrangements. The doctor who pronounced him dead. The funeral director. See if anyone's financial situation suddenly improved." Relief flooded through me. I wasn't alone anymore. "There's something else," Robert said slowly. "About 3 weeks before Andrew died, or supposedly died, he came to see me. Asked me about creating new identities. Said he had a client who needed to disappear. I thought it was strange because Andrew was an accountant, not a lawyer. Why would his clients need new identities?" My heart hammered. "What did you tell him?" "I gave him some general information. Told him it was illegal and I couldn't be involved. He seemed relieved, actually, like he was hoping I'd talk him out of it." Robert's jaw clenched. I should have pressed him harder. Should have asked what was really going on. "You couldn't have known, couldn't I?" He met my eyes. "Mrs. Right. Did Andrew seem different to you in the weeks before he died? Stressed? Scared?" I thought back, forcing myself through the fog of grief to examine those final weeks clearly. "He was distracted. Came to visit me more often than usual. Told me he loved me every time he left, like he was saying goodbye." Robert finished. We sat in heavy silence. "There's one more thing," I said. "Jennifer told Karen I've been having memory problems, that I seem confused. She's building a case against my credibility." Robert's expression hardened. "Smart. If you start making accusations, she can claim you're mentally unfit, grief-induced dementia. Your family will take her side, especially if she has them convinced you're losing it. So what do? You prove you're sharp as a tack. Document everything. Keep records. Maybe get a cognitive assessment from your doctor just to have it on file. And be careful. If Jennifer thinks you're a threat, she might escalate." I left Robert's office with a plan and a renewed sense of purpose. But as I descended the stairs to the street, I noticed a man in a dark sedan parked across the road. He was watching the building entrance. When I reached my car, he started his engine. And when I pulled out of my parking space, he followed. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I drove home through familiar streets that suddenly felt menacing. The sedan stayed 3 cars back, professional and patient. At a red light, I managed to catch part of his license plate in my mirror. 7 km. The light changed. I drove on, my mind racing. Someone was watching me. Already. That meant Jennifer knew, or suspected, that I'd found something. Or it meant something far worse. That whoever was behind Andrew's disappearance had been watching all along, waiting to see if anyone would notice the cracks in their carefully constructed lie. I pulled into my driveway and the sedan drove past, slow enough for me to see the driver's face. He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with cold eyes that locked on mine for just a moment before he accelerated away. Inside my house, I locked every door and window. I pulled out Tommy's notebook and added my own entry, followed from Robert's office. Dark sedan. License plate begins with 7 km. Driver male, 30s, professional. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my son-in-law, Mark, Karen's husband, who worked as a prosecutor. Margot, is everything okay? Mark, I need legal advice. Hypothetically speaking, if someone faked their death, what kind of crime would that be? That's a strange question. Why do you ask? Just curious. Something I read in a mystery novel. He laughed. Well, hypothetically, it would involve multiple felonies. Fraud, definitely. Filing false documents. Insurance fraud if there was a life insurance policy. Conspiracy if multiple people were involved. Why? Just wondering. Thank you, Mark. I hung up before he could ask more questions. Life insurance. I hadn't even thought about that. I found Jennifer's number and called before I could second-guess myself. Margot? This is a surprise. Her voice was warm, concerned. The perfect impression of a grieving widow. Hello, Jennifer. I was wondering if you could help me with something. I'm trying to organize Andrew's papers, and I can't find his life insurance policy. Do you have a copy? A pause. Just a fraction too long. Oh, yes, I have it here. Why do you need it? Just for my records. You know how I am about keeping things organized. Of course. I can drop it by sometime this week. Actually, I'm free now if you are. Now? Another pause. I'm in the middle of something. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow works. Thank you, Jennifer. She wouldn't bring that policy. I knew she wouldn't, because I was willing to bet it didn't exist, or that there was something in it she didn't want me to see. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Found something. Death certificate signed by Dr. Harold Brennan. He declared bankruptcy 6 months ago. 2 weeks after Andrew's death, he paid off all his debts. Cash. Call me. My hands trembled as I dialed his number. That was fast, I said. I have contacts at the courthouse. This is just the beginning, Mrs. Wright. Dr. Brennan received a cash payment of roughly $200,000 from an untraceable source. He's either the luckiest broke doctor in history, or someone paid him very well to sign a fraudulent death certificate. $200,000. Where would Andrew or Jennifer get that kind of money? There's more, Robert continued. I pulled Jennifer's financial records. She's been making regular deposits to a numbered account in the Cayman Islands. Started 6 months before Andrew's death. $5,000 a month, like clockwork. How did you get her financial records? Better you don't know. But Mrs. Wright? This is bigger than I thought. Whatever Andrew was involved in, it required serious planning and serious money. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was calculated, months in the making. I sank into my kitchen chair, the weight of it crushing. So what do we do now? Now I dig deeper. But you need to be prepared for what we might find. Because if Andrew willingly left you and Tommy behind, if he chose this, that's going to hurt worse than thinking he's dead. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen as afternoon shadows lengthened, and I wondered which would be worse. Discovering my son was dead, or discovering he was alive and had abandoned us all. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Professional suit, briefcase, severe expression. Mrs. Margot Wright? She asked when I opened the door. Yes? My name is Veronica Ashford. I'm an attorney representing the estate of Andrew Wright. I need to speak with you about some irregularities we've discovered in the probate process. May I come in? Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door. But I stepped aside and let her enter, understanding that the barriers between me and the truth were rising faster than I could scale them. The game had escalated, and I was running out of time. Veronica Ashford sat in my living room like a predator sizing up prey. She declined my offer of coffee, declined the chair I gestured toward, and instead remained standing. A power play I recognized immediately. She wanted me uncomfortable, off balance. Mrs. Wright, I'll get straight to the point. There are significant discrepancies in your son's estate. Money that should be accounted for simply isn't there. I don't understand. Jennifer handled all of Andrew's financial affairs. Yes, that's part of the problem. Veronica opened her briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. Your son's business accounts show several large withdrawals in the months before his death, totaling just over $400,000. The number hit me like cold water. 400,000? The money was transferred to various accounts, then withdrawn as cash. No paper trail after that. As the executor of his estate, Jennifer is the executor? You didn't know? Veronica's eyebrow arched. Yes. Andrew appointed her executor 3 months before he died. He also revised his will during that time, transferring most of his assets into a trust that Jennifer controls. My mind reeled. Most of his assets? What about Tommy? What about his inheritance? Tommy is provided for through the trust, but Jennifer has complete discretion over disbursements. She could theoretically give him nothing, and there would be no legal recourse. I stood, needing to move, to think. Why are you telling me this? If Jennifer is the executor, because someone has to ask the difficult questions, Mrs. Wright. And frankly, Mrs. Jennifer Wright has been less than cooperative with my inquiries. She claims the money was for business investments that failed, but there's no documentation, no contracts, no evidence these investments ever existed. Who hired you to investigate? Veronica's smile was thin. That information is privileged, but let's say there are parties interested in ensuring that Andrew's estate is properly managed. Now, I need to ask you directly. Did your son ever mention financial difficulties, gambling debts, business troubles? Never. Andrew was always careful with money. Conservative even. What about his marriage? Any signs of trouble there? I hesitated. This woman was clearly on a fishing expedition, but for whom? Was she genuinely investigating estate irregularities? Or was she part of whatever conspiracy Jennifer was running? Mrs. Wright, I can see you're conflicted about trusting me. Let me be clear, I'm not your enemy, but I am very good at finding hidden assets. And I believe your son hid a substantial amount of money before his death. If Jennifer knows where it is and isn't disclosing it, that's fraud. If she was involved in helping him hide it, that's conspiracy. Either way, Tommy's inheritance is at stake. She handed me a business card. If you remember anything at all, call me, day or night. After she left, I immediately called Robert. An attorney just left my house. Veronica Ashford says she's investigating Andrew's estate. Never heard of her. Let me check. I heard keyboard clicking. Okay, she's legitimate. Works for Hartman and Associates, a firm specializing in estate fraud. Someone with deep pockets hired them. This isn't cheap. She mentioned $400,000 missing from Andrew's accounts. Robert whistled low. That's a lot of money to make disappear. Mrs. Wright, I think it's time we considered the possibility that Andrew was involved in something illegal. Money laundering, embezzlement. No, my son wouldn't. Your son faked his own death, Robert said gently but firmly. Whatever he was involved in, it was serious enough to make him willing to leave everything behind. We need to face facts. I couldn't argue. Instead, I asked, what's our next move? I'm going to talk to Dr. Brennan, see if he'll crack. And I'm running surveillance on Jennifer's house tonight. I want to know who this Douglas person is that Tommy mentioned. After we hung up, I sat in silence, trying to reconcile the son I knew with the criminal Robert was describing. Andrew had been honest, principled. He'd never even cheated on his taxes. What could have driven him to this? My phone rang. Karen. Mom, we need to talk. Can I come over? 20 minutes later, my daughter sat across from me, her expression troubled. Her husband Mark stood by the fireplace, his prosecutor's face unreadable. Mom, Jennifer called me today, Karen began. She's worried about you. Is she? Don't be defensive. She said you've been asking strange questions about Andrew's life insurance, about his estate. She thinks you're becoming obsessed. That grief is making me crazy? I finished. Is that what she said? She said you're not processing Andrew's death in a healthy way. And honestly, Mom, Mark and I agree. We think you might benefit from talking to someone. A therapist or what? A psychiatrist who can declare me incompetent? Karen flinched. That's not what this is about. Isn't it? I stood, anger giving me strength. Let me ask you something, Karen. Did you know Andrew revised his will 3 months before he died? That he put everything in a trust controlled by Jennifer? So? That's normal for married couples. And did you know he withdrew $400,000 from his accounts and it's just gone? No explanation? Mark straightened. How do you know that? An attorney was here, investigating estate fraud. Karen and Mark exchanged a look I couldn't read. Mom, Mark said carefully, if you're talking to lawyers about Andrew's estate, that's a very serious step. You could be opening yourself up to legal complications. Jennifer could claim you're interfering with probate or she could explain where $400,000 went. Maybe Andrew invested it, Karen said. Maybe there are documents you don't know about. Or maybe your brother faked his own death and is living somewhere with Jennifer's help. The words hung in the air like a grenade. Karen's face went pale. Mom, do you hear yourself? That's insane. Is it? Have you asked yourself why Jennifer insisted on a closed casket? Why she rushed the funeral? Why she seems perfectly fine now, barely a month later? People grieve differently, Karen said, but her voice wavered. She's making deposits to an offshore account, Karen. She's burning papers. There's a man visiting her house late at night, and Tommy... I stopped, realizing I was about to betray my grandson's trust. Tommy what? Mark pressed. Tommy is frightened of his own mother. Karen stood, tears in her eyes. This is exactly what Jennifer said. You're creating conspiracy theories instead of accepting reality. Andrew is dead, Mom. He's gone. And you need help accepting that. I don't need help. I need answers. Mark, Karen turned to her husband. Tell her what could happen if she keeps going down this path. Mark's expression was pained. Mrs. Wright, Margot, if you start making public accusations against Jennifer without evidence, she could sue you for defamation. She could also petition the court to restrict your access to Tommy, claiming you're a harmful influence. And if she can demonstrate you're not of sound mind, she could have me declared incompetent. I understand. I looked at my daughter. Is that what you want, Karen? Your mother locked away in some facility because she asks inconvenient questions? I want you to be okay, Karen sobbed. I can't lose you too. They left shortly after, Karen crying, Mark's arm around her shoulders. And I understood that I'd lost my daughter's support. Jennifer had won that battle before I even knew we were fighting. I was alone, or so I thought. That evening, as darkness fell, my doorbell rang again. I checked the peephole and saw Tommy standing on my porch, his backpack over his shoulder, his face streaked with tears. I opened the door and he collapsed into my arms. Grandma, please, I need to stay here tonight. Please don't make me go home. Sweetheart, what happened? Mom found out. She found out I've been writing things down. She went through my room and found my notebook, the other one, not the one I gave you, and she's so angry. She said I'm a traitor. She said I'm just like Dad, always ruining everything. I pulled him inside, locked the door. Where is your mother now? She's at home with Douglas, that man I told you about. They were yelling at each other when I left. Grandma, I'm scared. Douglas said something about loose ends and Mom told him I'm just a kid. I don't know anything. But I do know things. I know Dad's not really dead. My blood turned to ice. Tommy, did your mother see you leave? He shook his head. I snuck out my window. I rode my bike here. Grandma, I think they're going to do something bad. I think... Headlights swept across my windows. A car was pulling into my driveway. Jennifer's silver sedan. Upstairs, I said urgently. My bedroom. Lock the door. Don't come out no matter what you hear. But Grandma, go. Now. He ran. I heard his footsteps on the stairs. Heard my bedroom door close and lock. The pounding on my front door started before I could even think about what to do. Margot! Open this door. I know Tommy's in there. Jennifer's voice was ragged, furious. Nothing like the composed widow she'd been playing. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. Through the gap, I could see Jennifer's face, flushed and wild. Behind her stood a man I didn't recognize. Tall, dark-haired, cold-eyed. Douglas. Tommy isn't here, I said calmly. Don't lie to me. His bike is in your driveway. Send him out, now. Even if he was here, I wouldn't send him anywhere with you. Not when you're in this state. That's my son. You have no right. I have every right to protect my grandson, especially when his mother is terrifying him. Douglas stepped forward. Mrs. Wright, let's all be reasonable here. Tommy needs to come home. This doesn't need to get complicated. It's already complicated. $400,000 complicated. Faked death complicated. Shall I go on? Jennifer's face went sheet white. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I know about the offshore accounts, the cash payments to Dr. Brennan, the photographs of Andrew taken after his funeral. I know everything, Jennifer. You know nothing, she hissed. You're a confused old woman who can't accept that her son is dead. Then explain the photograph. Time-stamped last Tuesday, 2:47 a.m. Andrew, alive and sleeping. Douglas's hand moved to his jacket. For one terrible moment, I thought he might pull out a weapon, but he just pulled out his phone. We need to call this in, he said to Jennifer. Call who? I demanded. Jennifer's expression shifted, something like pity crossing her face. You really should have stayed out of this, Margot. You should have just mourned your son and moved on. Now, she glanced at Douglas. Now we have a problem. The only problem is that you faked Andrew's death and I'm going to expose it. Expose what? Jennifer's laugh was bitter. You have no proof. A single photograph that could easily be explained as old, mislabeled. A grieving grandmother's desperate fantasy. Who's going to believe you? Your own daughter thinks you're losing your mind. Robert Martinez believes me. Something flickered in Jennifer's eyes. Fear? Andrew's friend? What did you tell him? Everything. Douglas spoke urgently to Jennifer. We need to accelerate the timeline. This is too exposed. I know, Jennifer snapped. Then to me. Margot, I'm giving you one chance. 1. Forget everything you think you know. Stop investigating. Send Tommy home. And we all walk away from this. Or what? Or I have you committed for psychiatric evaluation. I have witnesses who will testify you're delusional, paranoid, a danger to yourself and Tommy. Karen will support me. She already thinks you're having a breakdown. You'll lose everything. Your freedom, your grandson, your credibility. Is that what you want? I looked at this woman who'd married my son, who'd shared my grandchild, who I'd welcomed into our family. And I saw a stranger. Someone capable of cold calculation and cruelty. Get off my property, I said quietly. Or I call the police. And tell them what? That your dead son is alive? Please make that call. I'd love to hear what they say. But she stepped back. Douglas grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the car. This isn't over, Jennifer said. I'm calling Child Protective Services in the morning. Tommy is not safe here. Not with you. They drove away, leaving me shaking in my doorway. I locked the door and climbed the stairs on trembling legs. Tommy opened my bedroom door, his face pale. I heard everything, he whispered. I know, sweetheart. Is Mom going to take me away? Not if I can help it. But even as I said it, I knew the walls were closing in. Jennifer had resources, allies, a strategy. And I was a 68-year-old woman with a photograph and a child's notebook. My phone rang. Robert. Mrs. Wright. We have a serious problem. I just got a call from a police detective. They want to talk to me about harassment complaints. Jennifer filed a report saying you've been stalking her, making wild accusations, acting erratically. She was just here. She threatened me. Can you prove it? I couldn't. I had no security cameras, no witnesses except Tommy. There's more, Robert continued. That attorney, Veronica Ashford? I did some deeper digging. She's not investigating estate fraud. She's investigating you. Jennifer hired her to build a case for having you declared incompetent. The room spun. Mrs. Wright? Are you still there? I'm here. Listen to me. You need to be very careful. Every move you make from now on, Jennifer will use against you. Don't confront her. Don't make accusations. Just what? Let her win? Let me do my job. I'm close to something. Dr. Brennan is cracking. I can feel it. Give me 2 more days. Can you do that? I have Tommy here. Jennifer's calling CPS in the morning. Robert swore. Okay. New plan. Tomorrow morning, you take Tommy to a family attorney. File for emergency grandparent custody, citing Jennifer's instability. It won't be permanent, but it might buy us time. I'll text you a name." After we hung up, I helped Tommy settle into the guest room. He fell asleep clutching his backpack, and I stood in the doorway watching him, this innocent child caught in a web of adult deceptions. I went back downstairs and pulled out the photograph one more time. Andrew's peaceful face. My son, alive somewhere, while I fought battles he'd left behind. And then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. In the background of the photo, partially visible on a wall, was a calendar. I got my magnifying glass, the one I used for reading small print, and examined it closely. It was a 2025 calendar. But more than that, I could just make out handwriting on one of the dates. An appointment, maybe. The writing was too small to read, but the style was familiar. It was Andrew's handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere. My son had written on that calendar. Recently. Which meant the photo wasn't just proof he was alive, it was proof he was actively living somewhere, making plans, existing in a world we thought he'd left. The question was, why? And as I sat in my dark kitchen, I realized the answer might be worse than anything I'd imagined. Because if Andrew was alive and hiding, if he'd orchestrated this elaborate deception, then maybe he was running from something even more dangerous than the law. Maybe he was running for his life. And maybe Jennifer's threats tonight weren't about protecting a con. Maybe they were about protecting a secret that could get us all killed. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, with Tommy in the guest room and Jennifer's threats echoing in my mind? At dawn, I stood at my kitchen window watching the street, half expecting police cars or CPS vehicles to appear. Instead, at 7:30, a different car pulled up. Robert's unmarked sedan. He practically ran to my door. "Mrs. Right? We need to talk. Now." I let him in, checked to make sure Tommy was still sleeping upstairs, then led Robert to the kitchen. "Dr. Brennan talked," Robert said without preamble. "I met him at a diner at 6 this morning. He's terrified, Mrs. Wright. Absolutely terrified." "Of what?" "Of whoever paid him to falsify that death certificate. He wouldn't give me names, but he told me enough." Robert pulled out his notebook. "Andrew didn't die of cardiac arrest. The body in that casket wasn't your son." The kitchen tilted. I gripped the counter to steady myself. "What?" "There was a body. Someone died. But it wasn't Andrew. Dr. Brennan was brought in to identify a John Doe, a homeless man who died of an overdose. Similar build, similar age. The face was damaged in what they claimed was a fall. Brennan was paid to sign off that it was Andrew Wright. But I saw him. At the viewing? Did you see his face clearly? Or did Jennifer convince you not to look too closely?" I thought back to that horrible day. The casket had been open, but the lighting was dim. Jennifer had been beside me, her hand on my arm, whispering that I should remember Andrew as he was, not like this. I'd glanced down, seen dark hair, a familiar suit, but I couldn't, look closely. The grief had been too overwhelming. "They showed me what I expected to see," I whispered. "Exactly. And everyone else trusted Jennifer's identification. Why would his wife lie?" Robert's expression was grim. "But here's where it gets worse. Dr. Brennan says the people who paid him, he never met them directly. Everything was done through intermediaries. But he overheard a phone conversation. Someone mentioned a name, Dmitry Vilati. Who's that? A very bad man. Russian organized crime. Based in New York, but with operations up and down the East Coast. Money laundering, extortion, fraud. The kind of man you don't cross and live to tell about it." My legs gave out. I sank into a chair. "You're saying Andrew was involved with the Russian mob?" "I'm saying Andrew was running from them, or working for them, or both." Robert sat across from me. "Think about it. $400,000 missing. The need to disappear completely. The elaborate staging. This wasn't just about escaping debts or a bad marriage. This was about survival. But how? Andrew was an accountant. He did taxes for small businesses. He wasn't... Accountants are perfect for money laundering, Mrs. Wright. They understand financial systems. They have access to business accounts. And they're trusted." Robert leaned forward. "I think Andrew got pulled into something. Maybe unwittingly at first. Maybe one of his clients was a front for Vilati's operation. And once you're in with people like that, you don't get out. Not alive. Tommy appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Grandma? Who's this? This is Mr. Martinez, sweetheart. He was your daddy's friend. Are you hungry? Let me make you breakfast. While I scrambled eggs, Robert's phone rang. He stepped into the living room to take the call, but I could hear his side of the conversation. His voice got tighter, sharper. When he came back, his face was ashen. That was my contact at the police department. Jennifer filed a missing persons report on Tommy. Claims you abducted him last night. There's an officer on the way here now. But he came here on his own. He was scared. I know. But it's her word against yours. And she's playing the terrified mother perfectly. Robert checked his watch. You have maybe 10 minutes. Here's what you're going to do. When the police arrive, you're calm, cooperative. You explain that Tommy showed up at your door upset, and you were planning to call Jennifer this morning but wanted to let him sleep first. You don't mention anything about Jennifer's threats. You don't mention the investigation. You're just a concerned grandmother, understand? I nodded, my mouth dry. Tommy. Robert crouched down to the boy's level. When the police come, you need to tell them the truth. That you came here because you were upset, that Grandma didn't do anything wrong. Can you do that? Tommy looked at me, fear in his eyes. Will they make me go back to Mom? Probably, Robert said gently. But we're working on something better. Just hold on a little longer, okay? The police arrived exactly 9 minutes later. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. They were professional, polite, but I could see the judgment in their eyes. They saw an elderly woman, possibly confused, possibly dangerous. They saw what Jennifer had primed them to see. Tommy told them he'd come here on his own. The female officer asked him why, and he said he'd been scared because his mom was yelling. She asked if Grandma had ever hurt him, and he said no, never. She asked if he wanted to go home, and he hesitated just long enough that my heart broke. Can I stay here a little longer? He asked. I'm afraid not, sweetie. Your mom is very worried. She's waiting for you at home. They took him. Tommy looked back at me as they led him to their car, and I saw my son's eyes looking out from his small face. Andrew's eyes, full of questions I couldn't answer. After they left, I collapsed onto my couch and let myself cry for the first time since this nightmare began. Robert sat beside me, saying nothing, just present. What do I do now? I asked when I could speak again. Now we prove everything. I'm going back to Dr. Brennan, getting him to make a formal statement. I'm tracking down Vilotti's local operations, seeing if I can find any connection to Andrew. And you, he pulled out a business card. You're going to see this attorney. Today. She specializes in grandparents' rights. Tell her everything. The attorney's office was in a renovated Victorian house downtown. Patricia McKinney, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, listened without interrupting. Was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. I told her everything. The photograph, the investigation, Jennifer's threats, the revelation about the body in the casket. She listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. Mrs. Wright, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the most complicated case I've seen in 20 years of practice. If what you're saying is true, if Andrew is alive and involved with organized crime, then filing for custody of Tommy could put that child in danger. He's already in danger. Jennifer is his mother, and unless we can prove she's unfit, no court will take Tommy away from her. The photograph alone isn't enough. We need more. What about the fake death certificate? The mob connections? All hearsay until we have concrete proof. And even then, Patricia hesitated. Even then, if Andrew faked his death to escape dangerous criminals and Jennifer helped him, she could argue she did it to protect her family. Some judges might even be sympathetic. So Tommy stays with a woman who lies to him every day? Who's involved with God knows what kind of criminal activity? Unless we can prove immediate danger, yes. Patricia softened. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but I need you to understand the reality. Family courts favor parents, always, especially mothers. Your best chance is if Jennifer makes a mistake, if she shows her true nature publicly. If she does something that can't be explained away. I left the attorney's office feeling more hopeless than when I'd entered. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Wright? A man's voice, accented. Russian. We need to have conversation. About your son. Every muscle in my body locked. Who is this? Friend. Someone who can help you find answers you're looking for. There's coffee shop on Maple Street, The Grind. You know it? Yes. Be there in 1 hour. Alone. Tell no one. If you bring police, if you bring that investigator friend, we disappear, and you never learn truth about Andrew. Understand? I understand. The line went dead. I texted Robert. Victor, The Grind, in 1 hour. Silver-templed, 50s. If I go dark, call Detective Morrison. I sat in my car, hands shaking. Every instinct screamed this was a trap. But this man, whoever he was, knew about Robert, knew I was investigating, and he claimed to have information about Andrew. I called Robert. It went to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. 55 minutes until the meeting. I drove home, changed into comfortable shoes, grabbed my purse. Inside, I placed a small digital recorder I'd bought years ago for recording recipes from my mother. I turned it on, tested it, and slipped it into my purse. If I was walking into danger, I'd at least document it. The Grind was a small coffee shop I'd been to a few times before. Cozy, usually crowded with students from the community college. But today, it was oddly empty, except for a man sitting in the back corner. He was maybe 50, well-dressed with silver at his temples and cold, calculating eyes. As I approached, he stood, gestured to the chair across from him. Mrs. Wright, thank you for coming. Please sit. Can I get you coffee? I'm fine. You said you have information about my son. Direct. I appreciate this. Americans waste so much time with pleasantries. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. My name is Victor. I work for someone who knew your son. Andrew did business with my employer. What kind of business? The kind that required discretion. Andrew was very good at his job, very careful, until he wasn't. What does that mean? Victor leaned back, studying me. Your son discovered something he shouldn't have. Details of an operation. Instead of keeping quiet, he tried to be hero. He went to police, gave them evidence. My heart hammered. He went to the police? About what? About everything. Money laundering operation worth millions. Names, accounts, transactions. He thought he was doing right thing. But right thing gets people killed, Mrs. Wright. So you killed him? No. Victor's expression was almost amused. We were going to. But Andrew was smart. He knew we'd come for him, so he made deal. What kind of deal? He faked his death, convinced police that case was dead with him, disappeared, and in exchange, we let him live. We let his family live, as long as he stayed gone. But the police, if he gave them evidence, without Andrew to testify, case fell apart. Our lawyers made it go away. Everyone moved on. Victor's eyes hardened. But now you're making noise, asking questions, hiring investigators, threatening to expose what Andrew did. And that, Mrs. Wright, is problem. I just want to know my son is alive. He is alive, and he will stay alive as long as you stop looking for him. This is message I came to deliver. Stop investigating. Stop asking questions. Or deal we made with Andrew. Deal that protects him, protects Tommy, protects you. That deal ends. Are you threatening me? I am explaining consequences. Victor stood. You seem like intelligent woman. Loving grandmother. You want to protect Tommy, yes? Then you will go home. Tell your investigator friend to stop digging, and you will mourn your dead son like good mother should. You will accept that he is gone. Because if you don't, he leaned close. If you don't, then he really will be gone. Permanently. He walked out, leaving me alone in the coffee shop, my hands shaking around a cup of coffee I didn't remember ordering. I sat there for a long time, trying to process what I'd just learned. Andrew was alive. He was alive and hiding, not because he'd stolen money or committed crimes, but because he'd tried to do the right thing. He'd tried to expose criminals, and in doing so, had put himself in mortal danger. And Jennifer. Jennifer had helped him disappear, had staged the elaborate funeral, had played the widow, all to protect him. But if that was true, why was she threatening me? Why the offshore accounts? Why the secrecy and lies? Unless Jennifer wasn't the victim in this story, unless Jennifer had her own agenda. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your email. Now. I opened my email on my phone. There was a new message, no subject line, from an encrypted address. It contained a single attachment, a video file. I downloaded it, hands shaking. The video was grainy, time-stamped from 3 months ago. It showed Jennifer in what looked like a parking garage, talking to a man I recognized from photos in Andrew's old albums, his former business partner Greg Sullivan. But they weren't just talking. They were kissing, and the kiss wasn't friendly. It was passionate, intimate, familiar. The video continued. Jennifer pulled away, said something I couldn't hear. Greg responded, and Jennifer laughed. A real laugh. Nothing like the controlled smiles she'd shown since Andrew's death. Then Greg handed her a manila envelope. Jennifer opened it, rifled through what looked like documents, nodded. They kissed again, and the video ended. 3 months ago, right when Andrew had revised his will, right when the money had started disappearing from his accounts. I understood then, with sickening clarity, what had really happened. Andrew hadn't just been running from the mob. He'd been running from Jennifer, too. Maybe he'd discovered her affair. Maybe he'd discovered she was working with his partner to steal from him. Maybe he'd realized she was the real threat. And the deal with the mob, the staged death, Andrew had used it not just to escape criminals, but to escape his wife. Jennifer had helped him disappear, but not out of love. She'd helped because it gave her access to everything he owned, complete control over his estate, and the perfect cover story. The grieving widow, left to manage everything alone. But now I was threatening to expose her, and she couldn't let that happen. My phone rang. Robert, finally. Mrs. Wright, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I'm at the grind. Robert, I just met with someone from Vilati's organization, and I received a video. I think Jennifer... My voice broke. I think Jennifer orchestrated all of this, not to help Andrew, but to steal from him. Get home, now. Lock your doors. I'm on my way. But before I could stand, the coffee shop door opened. Jennifer walked in, her expression cold and determined. Behind her was Douglas and Greg Sullivan. They blocked the exit. Hello, Margot, Jennifer said softly. I think it's time we had a real conversation about your son, about what you think you know, and about what's going to happen next. Douglas locked the coffee shop door behind them and flipped the sign to closed. I was trapped. I remained seated, forcing my breathing to stay calm even as my heart hammered against my ribs. The coffee shop suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in, but I'd lived 68 years. I'd survived loss, betrayal, and grief. I wouldn't let fear paralyze me now. Jennifer, I said evenly. What a surprise. She pulled out a chair and sat across from me, while Douglas and Greg positioned themselves near the door. The message was clear. I wasn't leaving until they allowed it. We have a problem, Margot, Jennifer began, her voice stripped of all pretense now. No more fake warmth, no more concerned daughter-in-law act. You've been sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. I've been trying to understand what happened to my son. Your son is dead. You need to accept that. Funny, because Victor just told me differently. Jennifer's eyes flickered. Surprise, then anger. You met with Victor? Are you insane? Do you have any idea what kind of danger you just put yourself in? More or less danger than having this conversation with you? I gestured around the empty shop. Tell me, Jennifer, how much did you pay the owner to close early today? Or is he part of this too? Greg spoke for the first time. Mrs. Right? You're misunderstanding the situation. Am I? Let me tell you what I understand. I pulled my phone from my purse, making sure they could see it. I understand that you and Jennifer were having an affair 3 months before Andrew's death. I have video evidence. I understand that $400,000 disappeared from Andrew's accounts right around the time he revised his will, giving Jennifer complete control. I understand that the body in Andrew's casket wasn't my son. And I understand that Andrew went to the police about Vailati's money laundering operation, which made him a target. The three of them exchanged glances. What I don't understand, I continued, is why Jennifer would help stage Andrew's death if she was already planning to steal from him. Unless, the pieces clicked together as I spoke, unless she needed him alive somewhere, untraceable, unable to contest what she was doing. She needed him gone, but not dead. Because if he was legally dead, his assets would eventually be audited properly. But if he's just missing, presumed dead, she can control everything through the trust. Jennifer's smile was cold. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. So I'm right. Partially. You're missing some key details, but yes. Andrew needed to disappear, and I saw an opportunity. He was facing death threats from Vailati. The police couldn't protect him, so I offered him a solution. I'd help him stage his death, get him somewhere safe. In return, he'd sign everything over to me. And he agreed? He didn't have much choice. It was that, or actually die. Jennifer leaned forward. But here's what you don't know, Margot. Andrew wasn't the innocent victim you think he was. He wasn't some whistleblower trying to do the right thing. He was stealing from Vailati, skimming money from the accounts he was laundering. He got greedy, and he got caught. I shook my head. No, Andrew wouldn't what? Steal? Lie? Your perfect son was embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars. When Vailati found out, Andrew panicked. He went to the police not to be a hero, but to try to make a deal. Immunity in exchange for information. But the police couldn't move fast enough, and Vailati's people were closing in. That's when you stepped in, I said quietly. That's when I saved his life. And Tommy's. And even yours, Margot. Because if Andrew had just disappeared without explanation, Vailati would have assumed he ran with even more money. They would have come after all of us. But a very public, very documented death, with a body and a funeral and grieving family members, that made it real. That made it final. Except it wasn't final. You kept him alive somewhere. Jennifer smiled. Insurance policy. Just in case I ever needed leverage. And honestly, I earned it. Do you know what it's like being married to Andrew? Mr. Perfect, Mr. Responsible, always so worried about doing the right thing, even while he was stealing from the mob. The hypocrisy was suffocating. So you took everything. His money, his life, his son. I took what I deserved. I've spent years playing the supportive wife while Andrew made all the decisions. Well, now I make the decisions. And the first decision is that you need to stop investigating. Or what? Douglas stepped forward. Or we make sure Andrew's location gets leaked to Vailati, along with the information that he's still skimming money from his new location, that he never really stopped stealing. But that would be a lie, I said. Would it? Greg finally spoke up. Who would Vailati believe? The accountant who already betrayed them once? Or us, with bank records and transfers we've carefully documented over the past month? We've been building the evidence, Mrs. Wright. If you force our hand, we'll use it. And Andrew will die. For real this time. The cruelty of it took my breath away. They'd kept Andrew alive not out of mercy, but as a weapon to use against anyone who threatened them. What about Tommy? I asked. You'd make him lose his father permanently? Tommy will be fine, Jennifer said dismissively. Children are resilient. He'll move on. We all will. Once you stop interfering. I looked at each of them in turn. Jennifer, cold and calculating. Greg, ambitious and ruthless. Douglas, the enforcer, probably the one who'd actually arranged the body switch with Dr. Brennan. And then I smiled. You know what's interesting? I said conversationally. You've told me all of this, assuming I came here unprepared. Assuming I'm just a frightened old woman who stumbled onto something she doesn't understand. Aren't you? Jennifer's eyes narrowed. I reached into my purse and pulled out the digital recorder. The red light was still on, still recording. I set it on the table between us. I've recorded every word. The color drained from Jennifer's face. Greg swore. Douglas moved toward me, but I held up my hand. Touch me, and the recording automatically uploads to a secure server. It's already been running for an hour. which means it captured my conversation with Victor, too. Everything. The mob connections, the fake death, the embezzlement, the threats, all of it. You're bluffing, Jennifer said, but her voice shook. Am I? You're welcome to test that theory. But before you do, you should know that Robert Martinez has been outside this coffee shop for the past 20 minutes, along with 2 police detectives and an FBI agent who's very interested in Vailati's operations. I pulled out my phone, showed them the screen. A text from Robert, sent 15 minutes ago. In position. Signal when ready. I hadn't seen the text until now. Hadn't dared check my phone during the conversation. But they didn't need to know that. I signaled them when I placed this recorder on the table. I lied smoothly. They're listening to everything through an app on my phone. So please, Jennifer, keep talking about how you faked my son's death and plan to have him killed. The FBI agent would love to hear more. The silence was deafening. Then Jennifer lunged for the recorder, but I was faster than she expected. I swept it off the table and into my lap just as the coffee shop door burst open. Robert came through first, followed by 2 people in suits. The detectives, I assumed, but no FBI agent. I'd been bluffing about that part. Mrs. Wright, are you all right? Robert's gun was drawn, pointed at Douglas. I'm fine, but I think these 3 have quite a bit to explain to the police. One of the detectives, a woman with steel gray hair, stepped forward. Jennifer Wright, Gregory Sullivan, and Douglas Raines. I'm Detective Sarah Morrison. We have this entire conversation recorded from Mrs. Wright's device, now in our possession. You have the right to remain silent. As she read them their rights, I stood on shaky legs. Robert holstered his weapon and guided me outside, where the cool evening air hit my face like a blessing. How did you know to come? I asked. I didn't. Not exactly. But when you texted me Victor's description and said you were meeting him, I got worried. I followed you to the coffee shop, saw them arrive after you did. I called Morrison. She's been working the Vailati case for years. When I told her we had recordings of mob connections and a faked death, she got here as fast as she could. The recording really was uploading? Whether it auto-uploaded or not, your bluff worked perfectly. Inside the shop, I could see Jennifer being handcuffed. She looked up, caught my eye through the window. The mask had completely shattered. What I saw now was pure rage. What happens to Tommy? I asked quietly. CPS is probably already involved given everything that's coming to light. You'll need to file for emergency custody, like we discussed. But with Jennifer arrested, Robert paused. You've got a real shot now, Mrs. Wright. And Andrew? Is he really alive? I don't know. But Morrison will find out. If Victor was telling the truth, if Andrew really is in hiding somewhere as part of a deal. Robert shook his head. That's going to be complicated. Witness protection, maybe. Legal immunity in exchange for testimony against Vailati. It could take months to sort out. I watched as they led Jennifer, Greg, and Douglas to separate police cars. A small crowd had gathered. Neighbors and students watching the drama unfold. My phone rang. Karen. Mom? Mom, are you okay? I just got a call from a Detective Morrison. She said Jennifer's been arrested. She said something about fraud and... Mom, what's happening? Come to my house, I said. Bring Mark. We need to talk. An hour later, I sat in my living room with Karen and Mark, Robert beside me for support. I showed them everything. The photograph, Tommy's notebook, the video of Jennifer and Greg, the recordings. I explained it all, start to finish. Karen cried. Mark sat in stunned silence. I'm so sorry, Karen finally said. I should have believed you. I should have... You did what you thought was right. Jennifer was convincing. That was the point. I took her hand. What matters now is Tommy. We need to get him somewhere safe. Mark's phone rang. He stepped away to answer it, came back looking shaken. That was Morrison. They found something in Jennifer's safe deposit box. Documents, bank records, and a letter written by Andrew. Addressed to you, Mrs. Wright. My breath caught. What does it say? She wouldn't tell me over the phone, but she wants you to come to the station tomorrow morning. She says, Mark's voice cracked. She says there's a lot you need to know about Andrew, and that some of it is going to be very difficult to hear. After they left, After Robert departed with promises to call tomorrow, I sat alone in my quiet house and thought about my son, Andrew, who'd gotten involved with dangerous people, who'd made terrible choices, who'd stolen and lied and faked his death, but who'd also, according to Victor, tried to make it right, tried to go to the police, tried to be honest, even when it meant putting himself in mortal danger. My son wasn't perfect. Maybe he'd never been the man I thought he was, but he was still my son. And if he was alive out there somewhere, hiding and afraid, then I would find a way to bring him home, or at least to let him know that he wasn't forgotten, that his mother hadn't given up on him, that his son needed him. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She doesn't know where I am. The letter will explain everything. Trust Morrison. And Mom, I'm sorry. For all of it. I love you. My hands shook as I read it. Read it again. Andrew. It was from Andrew. He was alive. He was out there. And he'd been watching all along. I typed back, I love you too. Come home when you can. We'll figure this out together. The message showed as delivered. Then, after a long moment, read. But no response came. I sat in my kitchen as darkness fell completely, and I understood that this wasn't over. Not really. Andrew was alive, yes, but he was still running, still hiding, still caught in a web of his own making. And Jennifer, even arrested, even exposed, still had secrets, still had leverage. The game wasn't finished, but for the first time in a month, I had hope. Real, tangible hope. Tomorrow, I'd read Andrew's letter. Tomorrow, I'd fight for custody of Tommy. Tomorrow, I'd start building a new life from the ruins of the old one. Tonight, I'd done what I set out to do. I'd uncovered the truth, and I'd proven that age and wisdom could defeat youth and arrogance. The doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected. I checked the peephole carefully, half expecting more trouble. But it was Tommy, standing on my porch with a social worker, a small suitcase in his hand. I opened the door. Mrs. Wright? The social worker said. I'm Amanda Green. Given tonight's developments, we've temporarily removed Tommy from his home. Detective Morrison suggested he might stay with you until the custody hearing. Is that acceptable? I looked at my grandson, at his tired eyes and hopeful expression. Yes, I said. More than acceptable. Tommy ran into my arms and I held him tight, feeling the weight of him, the realness of him. Is Dad really alive, Grandma? He whispered. Yes, sweetheart, he is. Will I see him again? I thought about that text message, about Andrew hiding somewhere, about the letter waiting for me at the police station. I don't know, I admitted. But I promise you this. I'll never stop fighting for the truth, and I'll never stop protecting you. He nodded against my shoulder, and I guided him inside, closed the door on the night and all its dangers. The battle was far from over, but we'd won this round, and tomorrow, we'd fight again. The morning sun filtered through my kitchen window as I made breakfast for Tommy. Pancakes, his favorite, with blueberries arranged in a smiley face. He sat at the table doing homework, occasionally glancing up at me with an expression that mixed relief with lingering worry. It had been 3 days since Jennifer's arrest, 3 days of Tommy sleeping in the guest room, 3 days of slowly rebuilding normalcy from chaos. Grandma, do you think Mom will go to jail? He asked suddenly, his pencil frozen over a math problem. I sat down beside him, choosing my words carefully. I think your mother made some very bad choices. And yes, she'll probably face consequences, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you, sweetheart. People can love us and still make terrible mistakes. He nodded slowly, processing this. Do you think Dad will come home? I don't know, but I'm going to find out today. Detective Morrison had called the previous evening. Andrew's letter was ready for me to read. She'd also mentioned that federal prosecutors wanted to meet with me about Andrew's potential testimony against Velati's organization. The pieces were falling into place, but I still didn't have the complete picture. Karen arrived at 9 to watch Tommy while I went to the police station. My daughter looked tired, older somehow, as if the past week had aged her in ways grief alone hadn't managed. Mom, before you go, she caught my hand. I need to say this. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you, should have trusted your instincts instead of dismissing them as, Grief-induced confusion? I finished gently. I was so sure I was protecting you. Instead, I almost let you face all of this alone. Tears welled in her eyes. How did you stay so strong? So clear-headed? I thought about that question. Because I had to. Because Tommy needed me. And because being underestimated is sometimes the greatest advantage you can have. People see a 68-year-old grandmother and assume confusion, weakness, fragility. They never expect steel. Karen hugged me tightly. I'll never underestimate you again. At the police station, Detective Morrison led me to a private conference room. On the table was a sealed envelope, my name written in Andrew's familiar handwriting. Beside it sat a man in a dark suit, FBI agent Coleman, who'd apparently been investigating Violati's operations for 2 years. Mrs. Right, Agent Coleman began. Before you read that letter, I need to explain some things. Your son Andrew became involved with Dmitry Violati's organization approximately 3 years ago. Initially, it was legitimate. Violati owned several businesses that needed accounting services. Andrew had no idea he was laundering money. When did he find out? About 18 months ago. He discovered discrepancies, traced them back to Violati. At that point, he had a choice. Walk away and potentially become a target or play along, I finished. Yes. But Andrew went further. He started documenting everything. Every transaction, every account, every shell company. He was building a case, Mrs. Wright. For us. He became an informant. My breath caught. He was working with the FBI? Not officially, not at first. But he contacted us 6 months before his death. Said he had evidence that could bring down Violati's entire East Coast operation. We started working with him, building the case. But then, Violati found out. Agent Coleman nodded grimly. Someone in the organization got suspicious, started asking questions. Andrew's life was in immediate danger. His family's lives were in danger. We offered witness protection, but Andrew refused. Said it would destroy Tommy's life, tear apart the family. So he proposed an alternative. He'd stage his death, make it convincing enough that Violati would believe it, and stop hunting him. In exchange, we'd keep building the case with the evidence he'd already provided. But the body in the casket was provided by Jennifer and her accomplices without our knowledge or approval. Detective Morrison interjected. Andrew's plan was to fake a death certificate and disappear. But Jennifer saw an opportunity to profit. She recruited Greg Sullivan and Douglas Rains, got them to arrange an actual body, make it look legitimate. Andrew didn't know until it was too late. So he went into hiding, believing his family thought he was dead, while Jennifer took control of everything he owned. Exactly. And for the past month, Andrew's been watching from a distance, trying to figure out how to expose Jennifer without blowing his cover and putting Tommy in danger. Agent Coleman slid the envelope toward me. This letter explains it all, in his own words. My hands trembled as I opened it. Andrew's handwriting covered 3 pages, neat and precise as always. Dear Mom, if you're reading this, then you've already figured out most of the truth. I shouldn't be surprised. You always were the smartest person I knew. I'm so sorry for putting you through this. Sorry for the grief, the confusion, the lies. You deserved better. I got involved with bad people. Not intentionally, but once I realized what was happening, I had a choice. I could walk away and pretend I didn't know, or I could try to make it right. I chose to make it right, Mom. I chose to document everything, to work with the FBI, to try to stop them. And I'd make the same choice again, even knowing how it turned out. What I didn't know was that Jennifer had her own plans. I thought she was helping me disappear to protect our family. Instead, she was stealing from me, planning to take everything. By the time I realized what she'd done, I was already gone, already presumed dead. If I came back, I'd expose the FBI operation and put us all in real danger from Violati's people. So I stayed hidden, watched from afar, saw Tommy growing up through photos Jennifer sent, photos she probably shared thinking I was trapped. Powerless. She was right, Mom. I was powerless. Until you started asking questions. You were braver than I was. Smarter than I was. You did what I couldn't. You exposed her. You protected Tommy. You proved that the truth matters more than convenience. I don't know when, or if, I can come home. The FBI says once the case against Vilati goes to trial, once I testify, there might be a chance. But it could be years. Tommy will be grown by then. He won't remember me as his father, just as someone who left. But he'll remember you, Mom. He'll remember that you fought for him, that you never gave up, that you proved love is stronger than fear. I'm so proud to be your son, and I'm so sorry I disappointed you. Please tell Tommy I love him. Tell him his father made mistakes, but he tried to fix them. Tell him that doing the right thing is always worth it, even when it costs you everything. I love you, Mom. Always. Andrew. I read it twice, tears streaming down my face. Detective Morrison handed me tissues without comment. What happens now? I asked when I could speak. Now Jennifer stands trial for fraud, conspiracy, and accessory to faking a death certificate, Morrison said. Greg Sullivan and Douglas Rains are facing similar charges. Based on what we've recovered from Jennifer's accounts, she embezzled over $600,000 total from Andrew's estate. And Andrew? Agent Coleman leaned forward. Andrew is safe. He's in a secure location, working with us to prepare for the Vilati trial. After he testifies, assuming we win, which with his evidence we will, he'll be offered formal witness protection. New identity, new location. Or, he paused, or he can return to his old life, with security provisions in place. Vilati will be in prison for life, so the immediate threat will be gone. But there's always risk. Would he be able to see Tommy? If he returns, yes. If he goes into witness protection, Coleman shook his head. That would mean leaving everything behind, permanently. I thought about my grandson, about the little boy who needed his father. Can I talk to Andrew? Before he makes that decision? The two officers exchanged glances. Finally, Coleman nodded. I can arrange a phone call. But Mrs. Wright, you need to understand. You can't tell him what to choose. This has to be his decision. I know. I just need him to understand what he'd be leaving behind. The call was arranged for the following day. Coleman set up a secure line in the police station, and I sat alone in the conference room with a phone, my heart pounding as it rang. Mom? Andrew's voice after a month of silence, after all the lies and grief. Still my son's voice. Andrew. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry, for everything. I never wanted... His voice broke. I know. I read your letter. Andrew, listen to me. What you did, working with the FBI, trying to stop those criminals, that took courage. Real courage. Yes, you made mistakes. You got involved with the wrong people. You should have told me sooner. You should have trusted your family. But you tried to fix it. That matters. I left Tommy. I left all of you. You protected Tommy. There's a difference. But now you have a choice to make. The FBI is offering you witness protection, a new life, somewhere safe. Or you can come back here, once the trial is over. Come back to Tommy. Silence on the line. Then, if I come back, will I be putting him in danger? Agent Coleman says Vilati will be in prison for life. The organization will be dismantled. There's always some risk, but I took a breath. But Tommy needs his father, Andrew. He needs to know you didn't abandon him, that you chose him. What if he hates me? What if he can't forgive what I did? Then you work to earn his forgiveness. You show up every day and you prove that you're committed to being his father. It won't be easy. It won't be perfect. But Andrew, Tommy is 8 years old. He's writing observations in notebooks like a little detective because he's trying to understand the world. He's brave and smart and kind. And he's your son. He deserves the chance to know you. Another long silence. Then, is he there? Can I talk to him? Not today, but soon. After the custody hearing, after things settle. Andrew, I need to know. Are you coming home? I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face what I've done. Then let me tell you what I learned this past month. I said firmly. Strength isn't about never making mistakes. It's about facing them. It's about doing the hard thing, the right thing, even when you're terrified. You taught me that, actually. You tried to expose criminals even knowing it might cost you everything. That was strength, Andrew. Real strength. Now you need to be strong enough to come home. What about Jennifer? Will she? Jennifer will face justice. And Tommy will heal with time and love and support. The question is whether you'll be here to help him heal, or whether you'll let fear make your decisions. I heard him breathing, heard the weight of the choice pressing down on him. I want to come home, he finally whispered. I'm so scared, Mom, but I want to come home. Then come home. We'll figure out the rest together. The custody hearing took place 2 weeks later. Judge Patricia Whitmore listened carefully as lawyers presented evidence. Jennifer's fraud, her manipulation, her threats. They presented my recordings, Detective Morrison's testimony, even Tommy's notebooks. Jennifer appeared via video from jail, her lawyer arguing she'd acted under duress, that she'd been frightened of Vailati's organization, that she'd made poor choices but loved her son. The judge wasn't swayed. Mrs. Wright, Judge Whitmore addressed me directly. You're 68 years old. Raising an 8-year-old child is a significant undertaking. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Your Honor, I've been preparing for responsibility my entire life. I raised 2 children of my own. I buried my husband and rebuilt my life. This past month, I uncovered a criminal conspiracy, protected my grandson, and brought justice to people who thought they were untouchable. I think I can handle carpools and homework. A slight smile touched the judge's lips. Custody is awarded to Margot Wright, with supervised visitation for Jennifer pending the outcome of her trial. Case closed. Tommy ran into my arms when it was over, and I held him tight, feeling the weight of this new responsibility, and the joy of it too. Karen and Mark took us out for lunch afterward, a small celebration. As we sat in a diner booth, Tommy coloring on his placemat, Karen reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You did it, Mom. You saved him. We all saved him, I corrected. It took all of us. Robert, Detective Morrison, Agent Coleman, even you and Mark eventually. No one does this alone. Still, Mark said, you started it. You refused to accept the easy answer. That took guts. I looked at Tommy, at his bent head and careful coloring, and thought about Andrew, preparing to testify, preparing to come home. It took love, I said simply. Everything else followed from that. 14 months later, after plea deals and a federal jury trial, the case concluded Dimitri Vailati received 4 consecutive life sentences. Jennifer was sentenced to 12 years for fraud and conspiracy. Greg Sullivan got 8. Douglas Rains turned state's evidence and received 5. And Andrew came home. I'll never forget the moment Tommy saw his father for the first time in 4 months. They stood in my living room, Andrew looking thin and haunted, Tommy uncertain and guarded. Neither moved for a long moment. Then Tommy said, Grandma says you tried to be brave, that you made mistakes but you tried to fix them. I did, Andrew said, his voice rough. I'm still trying. Are you staying, or are you going to leave again? I'm staying, if you'll let me. Tommy thought about it. Then he crossed the room and hugged his father, and Andrew collapsed to his knees, holding his son and crying. I left them alone, understanding some moments are too private even for grandmothers. That evening, as the sun set over my backyard, I stood at my kitchen window, the same window where I'd stood a month ago, watching for threats. Now I watched Andrew and Tommy throwing a baseball, awkward and tentative but together. My house, this place where I'd lived for 40 years, where I'd raised my children and mourned my husband and nearly lost everything, this house had become something new, a refuge, a place of healing, a foundation for rebuilding what had been broken. I thought about Jennifer in prison, about the choices that had led her there. Greed, yes. Betrayal, certainly. But also fear and pride and the inability to ask for help. She'd seen age and wisdom as weakness. She'd underestimated the strength that comes from living fully, from surviving loss, from refusing to surrender. She'd learned too late that the elderly are not fragile. We are forged in fires the young haven't yet encountered. We are steel wrapped in soft wool. We are dangerous precisely because we are underestimated. The doorbell rang. Karen and Mark, arriving for dinner. Tommy had requested a family meal, everyone together. As I set the table, My good china, the plates my mother had given me, the silverware Andrew had gifted me years ago. I understood that this was my victory. Not the arrests or the trials or the custody ruling. This, family, together, truth exposed, love persevering. I was 68 years old. I'd been dismissed, doubted, and underestimated. And I'd proven that wisdom is earned through years, that strength grows deeper with age, and that a grandmother's love is the most formidable force in the world. We sat down to dinner as the last light faded. Tommy chattered about school. Andrew listened with careful attention. Karen laughed at one of Mark's bad jokes. Normal, beautifully, perfectly normal. "Grandma," Tommy said as I served dessert, "thank you for not giving up, for believing me. Always, sweetheart, always." Later, after everyone had left, after Andrew had taken Tommy home to the small apartment they were now sharing, I sat in my quiet kitchen with a cup of tea and thought about the journey. 1 month ago, I'd discovered a photograph that shattered my reality. Today, I had my grandson safe, my son alive, and my family rebuilding. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Andrew had therapy, Tommy had adjustment challenges, Jennifer's trial appeals would continue, but we'd face it together, strengthened by truth and bound by love. I looked around my kitchen, at the worn table and faded curtains, at the cookie jar Andrew made in high school, and the calendar with Tommy's soccer games marked in red. This house had witnessed everything: birth and death, joy and sorrow, lies and revelations. It stood firm, foundation solid, walls strong. Like me. I was Margot Wright, mother and grandmother, 68 years old. I had lived, I had survived, I had triumphed, and I was just getting started. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.